Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Veterans Growing America podcast. I am here with my co-host Donnell Johns and Coach R.L. here, ready to give you guys another special guest. I have today Diedre Windsor. She is the founder, president, and CEO of the Windsor Group LLC. Welcome to the show, young lady.
It's great being here with you, gentlemen, especially, because you're Army comrades, and what's better than your Army comrades, right?
Indeed.
I know that's right. So we're going to get started. We're going to get right into this, Diedre. And I just want to know, can you tell us a little bit about your military experience and background?
Okay, so I joined the military. I joined the Army in 1986, right out of Detroit. I know Detroit is a little popular right now because the Lions won yesterday. So go Lions, go Detroit, go team. Joined the Army. I started out enlisted. I was enlisted for about 6.5 years. And I spent some time overseas. My first duty station was in Germany. I was a finance soldier. I left Germany, came back, went to Fort Bragg, then Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, and spent some time with the mighty 82nd Airborne Division. I was airborne for about 3 years. And after about 3 years there, I decided to go green to gold. So I applied for an Army Green to Gold scholarship, and I did receive the scholarship, and I went to school at Methodist University, and transitioned to the officer ranks. I spent my first couple of years as an officer, as an air defense officer. Back then, they were, gung ho about getting women into combat arms. And I know that's not one of the hardcore combat arms, but air defense is absolutely in the combat arms. So I spent some time in air defense, and then I retired as a personnel officer. I spent time in Saudi Arabia, in Korea, Fort Bragg. My last duty station was at Fort Bragg. I was with the United States Army Special Operations Command working at USASOC in the personnel office. And so that was one of the highlights of my career, that and being in the 82nd Airborne Division. But in 2009, I made the decision to retire as a major. And then I came on out and started this in the great civilian world. So I'll stop there because you just said military. So I'll stop there.
No, talk about your civilian experience as well.
Okay, so first of all, the Army, I would not give anything for that experience. It was a wonderful experience. I feel like every youngster should have to go in the Army for a couple of years just for the purpose of the discipline. One of the best decisions I made in my life. Came out for about a year after I got out of the military. I was actually out of work. I was applying, I was either too qualified or maybe I had experience, but not the right experience. So after about a year being out of work, I got picked up in a federal job at the U.S. Department of Education. And I ended up staying in the federal government for about it was about 6 years. I spent 5 years at the Department of Education. And I left there in 2015 because I applied for and was selected for a career senior executive service position. And so I was in SES and it was great. And to this day, people still say, well, why did you leave the government? Because I was working really hard. And I thought, if I'm going to work this hard, I can do this on my own. And so one of the things I made the decision to do was start my own business. Actually, let me go back a little. When I first retired from the Army, I started my business in 2010. So if you look up Windsor Group LLC, you'll see we got an EIN in 2010. And then in 2014, I went and registered with the state of Maryland. Neither time was I fully ready to start my business. And in 2014, because I was more senior in the government, and you're kind of restricted from being, dual working outside the government and working inside the government. So I left the Department of Education, applied for the SES position. It's funny because it wasn't my dream to be an SES, but my job was converted to SES position, and I didn't get my own job. So that's how I ended up leaving the Department of Education. And it was the best thing that ever happened. I think sometimes just things happen in life the way they're supposed to happen. I knew that my dream was to start my business, but I probably wasn't moving fast enough. So sometimes the, the universe conspires to get you to where you're trying to get. So I ended up leaving, going to justice, but I didn't have the same level of commitment that I had at the Department of Education. So after about 13 months as an SES, I thought it's time now. I can do this on my own. I can, if I'm going to work this hard, I can work this hard on my own. And then at the end of 2016, I quit my job. I quit my job in August, like August 3rd. I'll never forget. It was so random. I went into work. I was having a conversation with my boss. And as I was sitting there talking to him, I thought, is this my life? I really was sitting there having this whole conversation in my head. I thought, is this really my life? And probably 10 minutes into the conversation, I still tell people it was at 8:43. I said, you know what? I'm so sorry this didn't work out. And I got up, I left because it was kind of a testy conversation we were having. I went in my office. I knew I wasn't quitting that day. I knew that I was going to leave probably sometime later, but I knew I would resign that day and decide, at some point when I would leave. But I quit that. I did submit my resignation that day, and I think I stayed there about 100 days. And Veterans Day 2016, that's when I left. So
Now, see,
here I am.
yeah, you have like a wealth of experience. So, your time in the Army, your time as a SCS in the government, how did your military experience influence your journey as an entrepreneur?
I think leadership. I feel like, well, it's a couple of things. I think that I feel like one of the things that military people have that translates is really the leadership. It's because that's what most. Like we don't have our technical skills don't really transfer unless you're in like working in some professional capacity, maybe in medicine, or maybe you're working in numbers and in accounting or something like that. But by and large, most of the stuff doesn't translate. Like I worked in Army finance for many years, but that doesn't translate to civilian finance. But the thing that I have that I think translates well is leadership, is an understanding of people, the human dynamic. Because you come up as a military person, Donnell knows this as a senior non-commissioned officer, and I was an officer. As you come up, you're leading at every gate, okay? And you just become better at it. You become better at understanding people. You can become better at understanding the human dynamic. So I think that's the one thing that we have that translates. And I think also just that stick with it, or just that get it done. And because that's the military, like just do it, just get it done. you know, there's not a lot of fanfare, there's not a lot of bureaucracy. Here's the mission, let's get it done. So I think that bringing that over was helpful.
So you touched on this a little bit, but I want you to kind of go back to 2010 when you started your business. What inspired you to start that business in 2010 and then really move forward with it later on?
Yeah, it's like I knew, like I had met some people. You start meeting people the more senior you get, you start getting to the end of your career. But keep in mind, when I was thinking about starting my own business, it was very much a business, a sole proprietor business. And I often tell people, you got to make a decision at some point. Are you going to be a sole entrepreneur, not necessarily a sole proprietor, but a sole entrepreneur, like the individual, you are the business, or are you building a business enterprise? So at that point, when I left the Army, I thought, oh, I can go and teach leadership. I can do these things. And I realized quickly, one of the reasons I didn't start in 2010 is because I went through, I think, what most military people go through. When you leave the military, it's like graduating from high school again. But it's like the difference is it's like graduating from high school, not knowing what you're going to do. But the big difference is now you got bills and a family. And so you really don't have time to just be lollygagging, doing a gap year at your mom's house while you figure out what's next, because you still have to pay your bills and you still have a family. So I didn't have that luxury. So I started the business. I knew I wanted to do it, but I was not really mentally prepared. Like I was feeling some days like, what is going, like some days I didn't even know if I was going to come in. And I think it's a normal thing. I've had friends who told me that they were actually on medication when they left the military just because they could not, it's just, I felt aloof most of the time, like in that first year.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point it's like, okay, I got to get a job because I have bills to pay. And so I took a job because I wasn't in the mental headspace to move in the direction I wanted to move in. And then later, in 2014, when I decided, because I had decided, hey, I am going to move the needle this year. It was so important that I registered my business on January 2nd of 2014.
Mm.
That was like, it was like, I will not do anything in this new year until I registered this business. And I really went to Baltimore and I stood in line. I didn't want to mail it. I didn't want to try to do it on the computer. I was like, I need to see these documents in my hands today. And that's what I did. And still at that point, I was not ready to leave. I was in no position really financially to leave and start my business. But then later, as I started recovering from being out of work, because it'll take you years to recover from being out of work. So that's something we don't talk about enough, but it will definitely take you years to recover from being out of work. So, and I didn't even know back then, oh, I'm no longer in the military. I could apply for unemployment. Who knew all of this, So, and I skipped over one little part. Like, I did take a job right when I got out because there was a gentleman who ran a medical unit when I was in the military. He was working at the office of the Surgeon General, and I applied for a job, and I actually got the job. And I worked. It was at the GS 11 level for like 4 months, and after about 4 months, because I couldn't deal. You know what I'm saying? I had to leave there, and then after that, I had to take a break. And then when I started looking for a job, I couldn't find a job. So, like I said, it was probably if I retired in October 2009, I was double dipping, so I started working before I actually retired.
Mm-hmm.
So when I retired in October, I probably was there for 2 months, and then I left. I just needed to take a break, a mental break. So I think everything happens in due time because when you think about it, I was going to start a business, but I didn't really understand it. But then when I was in the government, as a collateral duty, I was a contracting officer. I carried a contracting officer's warrant. So then I
Mm.
learned, I was meeting business owners and I was really seeing, okay, I see how this works. And as a contracting officer, I had a small warrant. It was like $25,000. But at the end of the fiscal year, we would get like 20 organizations, 20 companies direct awards. When we got money, because you know how budgeting works. If you don't hire on time, sometimes there's money left on the table at the end of the year, and you want to try to do some of those. You got the mandatory stuff, payroll, things like that, benefits, all that, and then you got the other stuff that you want to do that you don't necessarily allocate money for to be in a year, like training. So we would give lots of contracts for things like that at the end of the fiscal year. So anyway.
So here comes my favorite part. My favorite part, I want to talk about the business. So
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about your business, its unique proposition, and what makes it stand out over all of the other businesses.
Um, I don't know. Like our motto is mission first, people always. So we care about people. Our goal is to make sure that our folks are well taken care of. So when they go into that client's office to work, they can bring their full self to work, because they're not worrying about, am I going to get paid on time? Am I going to get paid at all? Because sometimes with small businesses, these are things that you have to worry about. But for us, one of the things we did early on is just set ourselves up so we could operate like a much larger business, making sure that we had the same benefits and things like that, fringe benefits like other larger companies. It's been a tough road. We started at the beginning of 2017, and I'll tell you, I will say this, that in 2017 we made about maybe $100,000, $103,000 or something like this. something like that. And last year, we hit, I mean, we haven't cleared our books and everything, but we hit about 32 million last year in
Wow.
our 7th year. And so it's been a true, I don't want to say labor of love. When people say that, I'm always like, what do they mean? It's been a wonderful experience. It's been tough, but it's been constantly trying to reinvent ourselves to make us better, to make us more competitive with other businesses in our space. One of the things I think that makes us really different, even though we have lots of set asides, we bid on proposals a lot. And so we pursue opportunities versus just waiting for set asides. We utilize every avenue from the GSA schedule all the way to other government-wide acquisition contracts. We make sure that we get on as many contract vehicles as possible so that we can compete. Because those government-wide acquisition contracts, some of them are like $50 billion. We're on 8A Stars 3, and it's like a government-wide acquisition contract for companies that are in the 8A program, which is is for disadvantaged businesses. But this is an opportunity. You're only competing opportunities that are on this vehicle. They're only like 400 companies, so you're only competing against those companies. So there's lots of vehicles out there outside of the set aside vehicles like 8A and SDVOSB and 1M. There are other opportunities to go after work. I think it's a lot available to small businesses, but I do think that sometimes when people are teaching and like you've been to a lot of these things right now where they're, hey, come on in, we'll talk to you, what you need to do to succeed. And, they always harp on the, you got to build relationships. I believe you have to build relationships also, but I do think that sometimes relationships can take years to cultivate. They can take years to bear fruit. So in the meantime, you still need to make money. You still need to grow your business. You still need to remain viable. So you got to build relationships, but you also got to pursue in different ways, like contracting officers all the time. They're giving you, hey, can you respond to this request for information? Tell me, can you do this work that we need to get done? Can you respond to this sources sought? I mean, where they're asking you, hey, what small businesses are out there available to work with us? And so I just think we got to take those opportunities more, put ourselves in position more with regard to those opportunities.
That's huge. And so talk to me a little bit about what the Windsor Group does.
Okay. So we provide, so it's just Windsor Group, there is a company called the Windsor Group. I always tell people, I always say there's no the in Windsor Group and there's no comma, because there are so many companies, there are several companies called the Windsor Group. And then they end in like comma, LTD, INC, like, but it's a common name, Windsor, fabulous name. Thanks to my mom and dad. But so we provide professional services. And under that umbrella falls everything from staff augmentation. We provide program and project management, a lot of training and development, and we do some IT support services. And sometimes we manage some really major programs. Right now, we've been this year we were blessed to get a contract with USDA. The contract was to be an administrator for the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program. And that program is it's a program that offers $2.2 billion in financial assistance for farmers and ranchers and forest landowners who've been discriminated against. So we were able to secure that award back in May, and our responsibility spanned the entire East Coast, everything east of the Mississippi River, and Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So we've been, boots on the ground, meeting the farmer where they are, really getting the word out with the hopes that they would come and apply for the program and receive some of the financial assistance. So that's the largest contract to date that we've won. The great thing, it was a great opportunity. I tell people, I never say because it was a hard contract. But I never say, oh, I can't wait till it's over, because I feel like, one, it's very consequential work we're doing. It's going to impact lives. This is going to be life changing for some of the farmers that are able to get the financial assistance that can prove that, yes, I was discriminated against. But also, we were able to hire like 100 people. We were able to subcontract to probably 20, between 20 and 25 other businesses. The lady where I rent my office locally, and I was at the office one day, because it went from just being me in the office, because all of our people are remote prior to this contract. And the lady who runs the office, she said, because one of my employees was like, oh, I can't wait till we're done. She's like, no, 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 I don't want you to be done, because we went from one office over there. Now we went from one office to 20 offices across the East Coast, but just in her building, we rented like 4 offices. We
Wow.
staffed up that much in that office. So to her, she was basically saying how it impacted her life, how it impacted her business last year. And one young lady called a couple of days ago, and she said, we have this organization. It's called the Bow Collective. It's for Black women owners, right? And to be a bow, you have to be at 1 million. And the young lady, one of the women we subcontracted, she said, you helped me reach bow status. Like, you helped me reach $1
Wow.
million. So to me, when you look at the impact like a contract like this can have, not just on your company, but those around you as well, is pretty awesome. So that was a pretty big deal. Pretty big deal.
Hey, so could you kind of share some like key lessons or piece of advice that you've learned in the military or even as a SES, and how that translated into bringing value to running your business?
I really will say again, I think it's just about understanding people. In the military, I mean, we got that lesson in spades, how you talk to people, how you get people, you need people to do what you ask them to do. And I'll tell you a better example. In the government, I used to share when I would talk with some of the leaders, um, you got to be able to say to people what you need to say. Hey, Bob, that's not your best work. But you got to also be able to come right back around and make Bob realize that, hey, you're still a valued member of the team. And you got to get this person to still come back tomorrow, bring their whole self to work. So you got to know how to talk to people. You got to know how to talk to people in a way where you can get your point across, but not take away from them, take away from who they are. And I think sometimes we struggle with that. I'll throw this out there. You didn't ask this question, but I'll throw this out there. I wrote a book years ago. It was in 2015. I wrote a book. It's called Leadership Begins with Hello. And so it really just talks about that. It talks about practical principles of leadership. Those simple things. Like, I feel like there's a lot of basic stuff, basic leadership stuff that we gloss over. Like, leadership training and development is a multi-billion-dollar industry, but we still forget basic stuff like please, thank you, and hello, because those things still reign supreme. I mean, there are people who are afraid to talk to the people who work for them. I mean, I've heard that on so many occasions. So, but I do think it all goes back to, because you're forced in the military, especially when you're in a leadership position. It starts all the way down when you're a sergeant and you're the squad leader, you know. I mean, when you actually got a squad, you got to figure out, like, you got to understand the personalities of all those people in the squad, because you need them to rally around the mission when it's time and follow, you know. So yeah.
I kept a copy of your book on my desk at work. I remember, in fact, Sergeant Collins gave me a
Mhm.
copy of it, and I was like, "This is good," because it kept the information really simple. Because
It's
people
very
think about
simple.
leadership,
Yeah,
and you think about these 27, 28 principles when talk to your people,
exactly.
listen.
Listen. Yep. And don't micromanage,
Hmm. Give them a goal and let them accomplish it. And so
Yeah,
speaking of
meet people where they
goals,
are. Yeah. Mhm.
what are your future plans and goals for your business? And what is your involvement in the veteran community?
Okay, so I will start. So I'll say, my goal is, I have a simple goal. Um, at some point, I don't know, that could be 10 years from now. I would like to sell the business. People often ask, is it legacy, or do you plan to be acquired someday? That's my intent, because I don't want to. My daughter, she likes music. She likes business, but she loves music. So I want her to do what makes her happy. I don't want to push that on her. I mean, she does work for the company, but I want to make sure that I just want to make sure that I want to grow a company of value where people want to come and work, where they say, I love working here. Like, I'm telling you, that is the most beautiful thing. On Monday, like probably over the last week, I've been visiting our offices across the country, but I said Monday, but it was Saturday. It's so the time is off when there's a holiday. Today is a holiday.
Mhm.
But on Saturday, I flew to Montgomery. That was the last day that the Discrimination Financial Assistance Program was open. That was the last day the application period was open. And just seeing the employees, they were so, like, to them, it was like such a big deal, you know. I went down there. I'm so appreciative of what they did, and just being able to go and tell them, that meant a lot to them. And it meant a lot to me, just knowing that, you know. So it's, I want to just continue to grow a company of value that is attractive, but also just build a company where people want to come, and they feel good about coming to work every day. You asked the question, what do I do in the veteran community? How do I give back? We actually give back in a big way to the veteran community. One of the things I'm most proud of, it's a couple of things. When people say, what are you proud of about your business? I always say, when my employees buy houses, that's a big deal to me, because I feel like that means we're paying a living wage. When my first employee bought her house, that is probably a highlight for me in my 7 years in business. To me, that's a big deal, because that means that obviously we have a good retention rate, because this person has been with us since we started in 2017, but also that she's still here and she's been able to take care of her family in a good way, not just, she's not barely making it. Um, so that's one thing. But one of the other things I'm very proud of is we're number 6 for small business philanthropy in the DC area. So we give to a lot of charities. Some of the major charities I give to Coda Support Foundation, which is a very good nonprofit that does, this is probably, like, maybe one day you can have the Coda Support Foundation and some of these other organizations on your show. But Coda Support Foundation, they do, it's an organization that supports veterans through case management, and plus they also created that tool, Patriot Link, which has all of the vetted nonprofits. So if you're local, say you're in San Francisco and you have PTSD and you need to find an organization, you can go into Patriot Link, you can find it. We donate to Coda Sport Foundation. We donate to the Military Women's Memorial. We donate to Women Veterans Interactive. Women Veterans Interactive, they
Mhm.
support the women veterans. We support Veterans Institute for Procurement. And obviously we support Veterans Group America just recently. Like, you all are new. Like, we support about 4 organizations in a major way, and then we support some more organizations in smaller ways. And I hope to continue to grow that. I was speaking at a conference recently, and I said, I don't even have the wherewithal to, like, I don't have the strength to run a nonprofit organization. And I applaud all the people who do it. So why start something when you have plenty of people like you, Donnell, who are out there doing this work? Why not support those organizations in another way? Because that's half the battle, finding people who have the time and who can put in the time to run the organization. So if you can't help with your time, how about help with the resources so that they can continue to grow and help other veterans? So yes, we give back to the veteran community in a big way. I think last year we probably did about 150,000, but probably 2/3 of that went to a veteran-facing organization.
That's huge. First of all, I just want to say thank you, publicly thank you for your donation. And it's helping 20 veteran and military spouse-owned businesses get in front of customers.
Awesome.
People say thank you for your service all the time, but you are basically thanking those that are serving and have served, and you have served. And so thank you for that. When you said that, I mean, I was just calling to check on you and to congratulate you for all of your success.
Right.
And for you to, bless Veterans Growing America with that donation is huge.
Yeah.
And I just
I want to do more. I mean, really, it was so random, right? Was it on New Year's Eve?
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve.
It was New Year's Eve.
I was scrolling through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was scrolling through LinkedIn and I was like, wow, you got recognized again. And people, I don't think that people give people their flowers enough, because all of the hard work that you put in to get your business where it's at, and all of the organizations that you've helped and supported along the way, it doesn't take anything to pick up the phone or text someone and say, hey, great job.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. I don't do it for any kind of accolades. Like I really do. I really do love supporting our veteran community, because I was there. I mean, for many years, I gave, even after the military, I gave to Red Cross, USO. Like these are organizations, because when you're in the military, you're like, oh, these are the organizations support. When I realized that they were much bigger, I was like, okay, let me let the big dollar people give to them, because there are a lot of smaller nonprofit organizations, and I feel like that's a whole other conversation. I was thinking about doing an article on this, about how small nonprofits should look at small businesses, like to build those partnerships. I feel like so often the nonprofits are everybody's trying to get that $5,000 from Walmart, and they're going to give you the $5,000 when you could just partner with another small business who is also looking to give back in a meaningful way, but they want to do it. They want to partner. They don't want to just say, I'm giving money, because at a point in your business, you get beyond it's New Year. You go from it's December 31st. You need to figure out who you're giving to, and then you give a couple of people $1,000. But as you continue to grow, you got to be more deliberate about that. Because what are you gonna do? Like 20, it's impossible. You got to put some more thought into it. But as I've thought about it over the years, I've talked to many nonprofits about that. It's like, find you a good small business that believes in what you're doing, okay, and make a partnership with that organization. And you make sure that you take care of them. You make sure that whatever marketing, whatever they need for their business, they get that. But form a partnership, so it's not, form those relationships that are going to be lasting. So you're not, you got these 20 this year, you got 20 different ones next year. Figure out, how do we build the relationship with the people? How do we make it so that it's worth it for them and for us?
That's the triple win right there. That's the triple win.
Yeah.
Diedre, I want to thank you for being on Veterans Growing America's podcast. We're at Veterans Growing America, people are in business for themselves, but not by themselves. And I just want to thank you for for your service and all of the support that you have given the veteran community, and all of the support that you're supporting as far as our nation is concerned. And so thank you so much. I'm gonna pass it over to you, Rob, to close us out.
Of course, and Diedre, again, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate all the valuable gems that you dropped, because I have a whole page full of notes, and that's just I love free coaching. I can't, I love it, and I really appreciate you for providing that information and just kind of giving us a drive and push to drive the organization to greater heights. Everybody, please, please, please make sure you follow and subscribe to the show. And then Donnell, just tell them what they got to do. All they got to do is
shop, baby. Come by Veterans Growing America and get your shop on, baby.
Well, can I say thank you to you, gentlemen? This has been a pleasure. It's been great talking with you all this evening, and I look forward to catching up with y'all again soon.
Indeed. And thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thanks, D.
And we are over and out.